Okay, so you want to own a nuclear power plant. The average one under construction today will cost more than $12 billion before it generates a single kilowatt. And according to industry data, some of the most advanced plants in the world are still not expected to break even for 25 to 40 years. That is not a typo. You picture clean, reliable power flowing for decades. You imagine stable income from something that never turns off, no matter the weather. That is the picture. Here is what it actually costs to own it. A nuclear power plant is not like other power plants. It is one of the most regulated, capital-intensive projects on Earth. Large traditional reactors and smaller modular designs exist, but the economics are brutal for both. Most people focus on the big plants, and those are the ones that have become famous for destroying budgets. The number that blindsides almost every new owner is the construction cost. A new large plant in the United States or Western Europe now routinely lands between $12 and $35 billion before the first electron is ever sold. The Vogtle expansion in Georgia started with a $14 billion estimate for 2 reactors. The final bill exceeded $30 billion, and that figure does not include the billions paid after the main contractor went bankrupt. Hinkley Point C in the United Kingdom was originally budgeted at £18 billion. The latest estimate sits at £35 billion in 2015 prices, which translates to roughly £48 billion today, with first power now pushed to 2030. Regulatory approval alone can take 10 to 15 years. Every safety review and design change adds time and money. Interest during construction becomes one of the largest line items because you are borrowing billions for a decade before any revenue arrives. A $12 billion plant can easily carry another $4 or $5 billion in financing costs by the time it opens. Once the plant is running, the costs keep coming. A large facility needs hundreds of highly trained employees working around the clock. Annual payroll and training can run $80 to $120 million. Maintenance is constant and expensive because every component that touches radiation must meet extreme standards. Refueling outages cost tens of millions each time they happen. Then there is the bill that arrives decades later. Decommissioning can cost $1 to $2 billion per reactor. That money must be set aside every single year the plant operates. Spent fuel storage adds another ongoing expense that can last for generations. Revenue comes almost entirely from selling electricity. A typical large reactor runs at 90 to 93% capacity factor and can generate roughly 7 to 8 million megawatt hours per year. In a strong market with a long-term contract, you might sell power for $80 to $130 per megawatt hour. Let's do the math. Take a plant that finally costs $15 billion all in. At 90% capacity factor and $80 per megawatt hour, it brings in about $630 million in annual revenue. Subtract $180 million in operating costs, and you are left with roughly $450 million before debt service. On a $15 billion investment, that is less than 3% cash-on-cash return in the early years. Most projects carry heavy debt, so interest payments alone can eat another $200 million. This is the volatility trap. Electricity prices swing wildly. In markets with heavy renewable penetration, prices can drop near zero for long stretches while your fixed costs never stop. One extended outage or regulatory change can erase years of thin margins. The Vogtle project proved exactly how this works in practice. What was meant to be a model for new nuclear in America turned into billions in overruns and years of delays. Hinkley Point C has already seen multiple cost increases and schedule slips, with its guaranteed power price now well above current market rates. Yet governments and large utilities keep building these plants. The reasons have almost nothing to do with short-term profit. Nuclear provides reliable, carbon-free baseload power that renewables cannot match without massive overbuilding. It helps with energy security and meets the exploding demand from data centers and AI. Many projects only make sense because of government contracts, tax credits, or guaranteed prices that shift most of the risk away from the private owner. Let's look at 2 realistic scenarios for a $15 billion plant. In the good year, it runs at 92% capacity and sells power under a strong long-term contract at $95 per megawatt hour. After operating costs and debt service, it shows positive cash flow of around $300 million. The project is finally earning something, but simple payback still stretches past 40 years. In the bad year, overruns push the total cost to $22 billion. Markets soften and the average price falls to $65. An extended outage adds extra costs. The plant loses more than $100 million in a single year while still carrying the full decommissioning liability. The gap between those 2 years is measured in hundreds of millions and can decide whether the entire investment ever recovers. The dirty secret is that for most private owners, the plant itself is rarely the main profit driver. The real value usually comes from the long-term contracts, government support, and strategic importance to the grid. The electricity is almost the byproduct. Owning a nuclear power plant can make sense for governments or very large utilities with patient capital and policy backing. For almost everyone else, the numbers remain punishing. The romance of clean, always-on power is real. The land and the contracts are what actually make you wealthy. The plant is just the expensive machine that sits in the middle.